Hello, welcome back to the ministry. And I'm coming back for what part are we on? You could call this spot 7. And I'm actually going to be going back. Everything I just explained to you in relation to the kingdom marriage part, I did a full-on breakdown of that. Because I wanted to do that all in one segment. But right now, we're going to go back and we're going to talk about the climate related things that the Lord showed me in relation to scene by scene throughout the movie. Okay? Because there's some things that are about to come up film wise that I got to be very strategic. I was just sitting here just really trying to get with the Lord about this because I know what I saw and have been seeing for a while now, and I just haven't said nothing about it. Sometimes you can see things over time and you just don't talk about certain things. But just like the young man had to speak, when I felt the shake in my spirit, knowing that I needed to speak or knowing that something needed to be spoken, I did not want to be disobedient and be like, with all of the warfare I had coming against my mind, to not speak on what I was seeing and what God was showing me, because I didn't want to be disobedient. Because a lot's going on. Let's just say spiritually and atmospherically and all of these kinds of things. So this is what I wanted to say. Picking up the father, when the son called him, he was in the office, like in the office space, and the mother had went there and met him. They just both happened to be in the office together when the son called. So she was able to talk to him just as easily as the father in that moment. But when he said what he said, the father said, "I'm coming to get you." Listen and hear me clearly. God will send a artillery to come and get you. Okay? If we talking about the same God that in Psalms 23 would not leave a sheep behind, okay? A sheep herder will not leave not one of his sheep behind. If one goes astray, he's going off to go get it. This is his son. The guy's friend was literally standing there, and he said, there ain't no way you're going to be able to get over there. There are people, just like, remember when Jesus went into the room with the little girl, and all the disciples were standing there, and he needed to bring that girl back to life, and he left everybody in the hallway. There are some people that may not believe or need to come alongside you, but because they have the skill set to get you through, God will use them. Because remember, God will still even use your enemies to be your footstools. So he will use them until their usefulness runs out. Okay? And they're going to get you to where you need to go, even if they become a sacrifice. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. Okay? So, he finds out where his son is, and he's like, I'm going to go get my son. The guy's like, but he says what he says. But he looks at the boy's mother, and the mother looks, go get our son. Go get our son. Think about you as a mother. Think about every mama here. If your child was in trouble, you would want their father go get them. Let's look at this spiritually. 9 times out of 10, in most dreams, the mother represents the Holy Spirit. Okay? And the father is the father. So when your situation is looking drab, drill, whatever it is, the Holy Spirit is going to be your comforter. But God is coming along the way, no matter what it looks like. He is en route. But remember, and this was the beautiful part about it, sometimes what you see happening in the natural is only a reflection of what's going on in the spiritual. What was happening to the son was similarly happening to the father at the same time. So imagine it like this. And I remember getting this revelation years ago in the early part of my walk with God. I used to go and walk around the park. One day, I was doing my daily walk with the Lord, and the Lord pulled me into a vision. And it was like he was showing me walking, but I was blindfolded. But I had my hand in his hand, but he was above me. Meaning, in the spirit, he was walking the same path that I was walking. He just wasn't standing next to me. I was being led underneath him in the natural as he was guiding me from the spiritual space. I need you to see me what I'm saying, okay? The father would be guiding your spouse from above him, but still walking beside him. You are a physical manifestation on earth as eyes to see, as the Lord is also showing you what needs to be taken care of so that you can spiritually be the sniper, the shooter, whatever it is that's able to assist in the process. You hear me? You understand? Okay, we got that taken care of. Jack's friend who worked in a higher up level intelligence for presidential level comes and contacts him. Now, earlier in the film, when these things started to happen with the weather, he went directly to the vice president. The vice president didn't want to hear nothing he had to say. Now, as he's preparing to leave to go get his son, his friend come up and say, I know that you got to get out of here. I ain't even going to tell you to stop. Because he already saw him packing all the artillery. God is packing the stuff to make sure to fight all of the battles necessary to get to you and to your spouse. Because he got to get your spouse and then he got to get that man to you. He got to get that man out of whatever it is that he was dealing with, and then he got to come to you. You helped that man get out of that stuff because you stood in the gap in the spirit realm. You understand what I'm saying? So he's packing up all this stuff. And God don't pack light. God was packing the heavy artillery to help get that man out of that situation. Just because that man couldn't see it all the way, he could still hear from that man, though. He could still hear from God, though he couldn't always see. But he had a level of wisdom that when God spoke to him, he knew what to move and how to move. It was only in elements of operating in disobedience or letting pride set in that may have caused certain delays. Okay? And it was your assistance to help remove the blockades with that. You want me to bring that in here now? I think I mentioned a little of this before, but I'm going to say it again. In some of the cases, your prayers literally were what removed each of the blockades when they popped up in front of your spouse. But it cleared a runway in order to remove anything that was holding him up so he could move without hindrance. But these blockades would keep trying to pop up, pop up, pop up. Lord showed me some of what they were, so I was able to pray. But these things would continue to pop up. Think about an obstacle course, and the certain obstacles keep popping up, popping up. That's what it was. They get a certain distance, and then another obstacle will pop up. But then the Lord was giving you wisdom. Get up and pray. Intercede. Pray. Stand in the gap. Do this. Pray. So it was your intercession from the distance that allowed them to move through those obstacles. There was resistance, but it was nothing because God was able to give you the wisdom to pray in relation to that. And that obstacle went from being up here to just falling down. So, meanwhile, God was planning the big strategic hit. Some of y'all been yelling at God. I don't mean yelling, but you know how y'all get. You get frustrated. You be going in your prayer closet and be like, God, what's up? What's taking so? Why is it? Because he be tapping you. Because he needed you to remove that blockade right quick. It didn't mean when you started seeing those words and all of those confirmations, he's en route to you, he's en route to you, he's en route to you. He was en route. But the enemy could tell he was en route too. And they started to be like, pop. Let me pop up another. Let me add another one. Did that one allow him to stumble yet? Did he stumble yet? So it was a scenario. It was a 3-strand cord already working. Because God could see what was happening to him. He tapped you. You start praying. That moves the blockade out the way. And what? He's en route to you again. Oh, there's 311 again. Delay. Block. Oh, pray. Do this. Okay. Pray. God get the signal. Blockade's removed in front of him. Okay. Keep moving. That's what was happening. Just because you say he's en route didn't mean that he... It's like when you're driving. When you start driving a path, you're en route. The whole time you're en route. But sometimes you run into detours. Sometimes you run into... Go watch my review for the movie End of the Road. You run into calamity. You run into all this kind of stuff. It's not that you're not trying to get out, but you're going to get out. You're going to get out. You get out. He was getting out. It was just, he was dealing with blockade. Blockade, pray. Blockade, fast. Blockade. So you get frustrated because, well, I prayed and nothing happened. No, it did happen. Because when you prayed, guess what? Blockade moved. So the father is getting ready to leave. But they tell him, we need you to explain to the president your research. Now, sometimes God will allow certain situations to occur that he will usurp an authority that thought he was blocking you and give you full clearance to get to where you need to go. Full. So, the father had to go in and meet with them. And this is the part that the Lord showed me. How deep do you want me to go, Lord? Because give me wisdom. I'm going to say this. The reason I didn't want to do this is because there's a lot been going on spiritually. And I first recognized certain things coming up a few weeks back. And in the certain things that I recognized coming up a few weeks back, I had to sit in the presence of the Lord about. But the Lord gave me this revelation. And I was going to speak what he said. Point blank and period. I will say that I remember Trust and Obedience made the point of saying something about the ice storm. But it was only when the Lord put this film in front of my face that it confirmed what she said. But the Lord began to speak to me about something else in relation to this very same thing. And I'm like, okay. And I was going to let it be. I was literally going to let it be. I was like, Lord, she said what she said. I'm going to leave it right there. And when I was sitting there watching that movie, God shook me about 15 times and said, I need you to say what I told you to say. I like 2 confirmations same day. I was like, this is why I'm here. I wouldn't have did this review. I probably wouldn't have touched this review. But I got to be obedient to the Lord. Over the past year or so, there has been a level of revelation to come out in relation to certain things that have been happening, weather-wise, country-wise, situational-wise. There are things that are happening that are bigger than just an ice storm. I have witnessed over the years that when the enemy is attempting to bring about a level of confusion during certain seasons, he will bring a storm to try to stop, hinder, or prevent certain things from happening. You ever notice how there will be a cold snap at a weird point in time in the year? And you'll be like, but have you also recognized that at certain points in time in the year that God is supposed to be releasing something? There'll be fog roll up out of nowhere. I done 2 words on this. 2. Now, when I first started talking about this film, I mentioned the smoke coming down from the fire in Canada. That smoke had a twinge to it. I remember when it hit here in the state my father lived. When it hit, it had a weird orange haze to it. Now, remember earlier in the first part, I mentioned the fact that the Justin Timberlake music video, he had a final scene in the video Supply was the music video. It was an orange smoke that was identical to what you were seeing, but it wasn't as heavy as it was in that music video. Hear me what I'm saying? Do you want me to say this? Have you noticed? And I put this together the other day. That when Elon Musk bought Twitter, they turned around and called it X. This same, within the last year, there has been a uptick of them talking about the potential of another illness. And interestingly enough, the name of it, X. It's like, Lord, you told me to say it. They have been talking about, even a friend of mine contacted me in relation to the way that this particular illness is going to be transformed, transmitted, so on and so forth. Think it not strange that we had them fires. And then, after that, they talking about this new illness. It has been talked about. The next one will have an element about it that will be flesh eating. I don't know to what capacity, but it was confirmed by one of the ministers that I have been under for years. And she talks about this kind of stuff all the time. I don't really try to stay or talk about any of this stuff. But she mentioned that orange haze and what was being put into the air. I'm going to say it like this. Prince made a interview several years back. Okay. And it was on RMPT network. But he was sitting there being interviewed by, I forget what the guy's name. Travis something. But he was talking about the chemtrails. And all of that. Now, remember, we're talking about climate change, right? So he was talking about this. Think it not strange. Certain things, now they talking about illnesses, now they even hinting at it if you pay attention to the news, which I really don't. But I have seen certain things in relation to illnesses, in relation to the past ones. Okay? But God is almighty, and God is all powerful. And the Lord gave me a vision. Very simple. One of the movies that I watched had a scene in it of nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin was sprayed onto an individual. Now, hear me what I'm saying. There was a film that the individual had ingested something that literally caused acid to eat them up from the inside. Okay? And acid, think about this. We're talking about potential flesh-eating disease. Acid is going to eat you up from the inside out. But nitroglycerin does what? Freezes. Acid is no match for nitroglycerin because it will literally stop immediately any progression of whatever was happening. Hear me what I'm saying, okay? This is the part I didn't want to talk about. Whatever this illness is that they trying to put in the atmosphere, blah, 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 God's going to use this storm to stop it. Fire and ice. You see that? Now, when that man went into that meeting to go talk to those people, the map was shown. He was explaining that there was a level of a deep freeze that was to such a degree that the upper part of the country was completely iced over. Okay? Secondarily, he said that the lower climates were still livable. Before this movie came on, within a couple of days, the Lord showed me that it was a map. And it came up on my screen, a meteorologist map. And it was exactly that. And I'm going to prove it to you because I'm going to show you 3 maps that were the closest that I could find that was like what it was in that film. They were talking about complete globe, from upper part of the globe to lower. This is what the Lord showed me. You see that? That is one map. I'm going to show you another one. This is another map. You see how the upper part is cold, freezing, precipitation, and the lower part is what? Hot. Now this is a high resolution forecast map. Same thing. I'm going to bring this one up close for y'all to be able to see it. You see how the snow and the cold in comparison to the lower heat ranges and resolution for that? To you, because to me it looks like the lower part of the United States is on fire and the upper part looks like it's frozen solid. You see that? Okay. This man was talking about there coming a point of a new ice age. Okay? Now, I don't know what the Lord told her. That's between her and God. This is what the Lord showed me. You can take it how you choose to take it. You can leave it. I'm going to just say what I had to say because that's what the Lord showed me. Now, with that being said, he had to prepare to leave because he had to go get his son. Point blank, period. So he gets ready to leave and his friend comes out there fully dressed and packing a bag himself to pop in the back of his vehicle. And he's like, wait, what you doing? He said, boy, you know you can't get nowhere without me. You gonna get out there and where you going? How you gonna get nowhere? You can't navigate. You ain't gonna know which direction to go in. It's full snow out there. You can't see. You'll end up off in North Milwaukee some daggone where. I got to guide you out of here. God, at particular points in time, and this is for your spouse, will bring people alongside him to guide him out to avoid confusion. There's a certain amount of confusion that was allowed, and then there was a certain amount of confusion that he had people that were prophetic witnesses, if your spouse listened, that led him around certain things. Probably would have led him completely around all of it if he was willing to listen fully to the voice of God in his ear and the people God sent. The problem is he might have been having a little bit of discernment issues with all the things that were falling apart. And the stress of that he may not have listened to every single prophetic witness. So He get ready to get in the car, and the other guy shows up. It's another guy that was working with him, and he said, "How you going now? I'm coming with you." Moses, Aaron, Hur. Just like his son had the two guys that were operating with him, the father had two people walking with him. Because what goes in the spirit has to reflect in the natural. You see how that works? So, with that being said, he leaves and they drive out. But when they driving out, they come to a point, they can't even take the car no further because the road between the snow and the fact that the vehicles were like in stop and go traffic, I think it literally had stopped at this point. And they were like, we gotta get out. So they had to literally, they in snow tundra gear, walking to try to get to this location, to get to the next point. But while they are walking, one of the men falls through the glass. Because they were walking on something, they thought they were walking on ground, but because of the level of the snow, they couldn't even see. So he ends up falling through, and in the midst of him falling through, okay, he's carrying this heavy bag. First thing he has to let go is like, I gotta let that go. Some people around your spouse, and this is for your spouse specifically, they wasn't willing to let go of certain things. And in some cases, the people had to be ones that threw themselves on their own sword. Because this man, because he knew that man was not going to leave him behind. He was going to do everything to try to save him, even if it cost him. One of the men tried to hold and harness his weight because they were on a pull liner, the three of them together. So when this one went down, it was holding the rest of them. And had the father not taken an axe to the ground and caused it to hold them steady, they would all gotten dragged down there. He held them. But the one that was directly between the two, he had to hold the one on full weight that had fallen. So he was holding him or holding himself at the edge of the glass to where he had fell through at. He was holding so tight that his hands were bleeding, trying to hold this man. And this man knew